In this tutorial, we're going to look at object literals. Now, object literals, specifically in JavaScript, are a way that you could package a data set that could be used throughout your application in a really nice, clean way. Now, if you think about it, an object literal looks a lot like an array, specifically an associative array where you define a key and value pair. But the key difference between an object literal and an array is that just the methods that are available to them are different, and how they kind of interact with your code is a bit different too. Now, the reason why you want to know about object literals is if you start going into pulling JSON data into your application, you're going to be looking at what is essentially an object literal when you're pulling stuff out. So let's get right to it. To declare an object literal, you start again with the var statement, and then you name your object literal whatever you want, just like any other variable. Now, we have var object literal equals, then you have the curly braces. Inside the curly braces is where you're actually going to define your data, and instead of it being called a key, it's going to be the property of this object literal, and then instead of defining it with an equal sign, you define it with a semicolon over here, and then pretty much it's the same syntax as declaring variables. If it's going to be a string, you're going to use quotes. If it's going to be something numeric, you're not going to need those quotes. Now, this variable is useful from a semantic point of view, but here's an example of how you would actually use a actual object literal. I created an object called contact, and in there I have properties for that contact: first name, last name, email, phone, and age. This is the kind of data you're going to see. So the question now is, how do we access the data inside this object? Well, let's start with the actual document write method, and what we're going to do is, let's say we're going to spit out the first name over here. Well, the first order of business is that we need to see what we're going to act on with the document write. We're going to act on contact. Now, what we want from contact is the first name. So what we're going to do is we're going to put period and then just add first name in there. Once we close that, what we should see in our page is, there you go, first name. Oh, whoops, I have first name twice. This should be last name. Now let's give that another try. There we go. Now we have Dragos over there. Exactly what we expected. So while this is a very simple example of code, if you look at something like Facebook's Graph API for a single page, you see that the syntax for this JSON data, that's what you're looking at right now, is very similar. It's not very similar. It's exactly an object literal that we're getting back. The only difference is that here it's not defined as it's defined in ours. It's just kind of set like that. So if you're going to start pulling in JSON data into your application, the very first thing you want to start learning is object literals in JavaScript.